Hey guys, this is Ghost Queen. And welcome back to another episode of Dirt Cheap Cosplay. Man, I missed saying that. Seriously, I have not done an episode like this in quite a while. But we are back with this show. For how long? I have no idea, but I was planning on making a cosplay, so hopefully I will update it as I add things to it, I guess? Well, today, as you can see in the title, we are making Asra's Sash. Now, I'm not exactly sure that's what it's called, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna call it a sash because I can't just keep going the fabric thingy he has around his torso or whatever the heck. You know, that's way too long, so I'm just gonna say it's a sash. You can shoot me in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's what we're making. Materials you will need are a piece of fabric in the appropriate color. I am using velvet because I like how the light affects it. It's really reflective and it also gathers quite nicely. I know a couple of people who absolutely cannot stand the feel of velvet, and I can't say I don't understand you because I don't like going against the grain, because that's just gross. So yeah, that's completely understandable. Just find whatever fabric works. Though I don't really recommend satin because it's kind of stiff and it doesn't really gather as well, but I'm pretty sure y'all can figure it out. Also need a gold trim that has tassels on it. I found this one for fairly cheap. It was approximately about $2, but it was in yen, so again, approximately. Yeah, I have no idea what this is, but I found it in the trim section of the fabric store. I looked around some more and I found some curtain trim in the store as well, and that was slightly more expensive, but the tassels were a whole lot more detailed and the threads were a much better quality material. For the sake of the title of this series though, I went for the much cheaper option. The tassels are very stiff and the gold is kind of like a tacky metallic rather than a really fabric-y and natural metallic. But because it's a costume, I'm gonna let that slide. And I also went out and bought some of this gold thread for hand stitching so that I can stitch the tassels on without anything showing up too much. Honestly though, this is pretty optional. I also want to talk about the length of fabric. Because I like to keep things inexpensive, I don't like buying fabric in excess. So what I do is I basically only get the bare minimum. I'm not going to have any of this left over when I'm done. A good measurement for this particular project, I'm not sure how this kind of fabric is sold where you live, but in my case, it was sold wrapped around a bolt, folded in half, kind of like this. So I bought a 30 centimeter length. So this is basically the length that I bought, and I knew that it was going to be twice as long as this. And honestly, it is the perfect length for me. So if you are short and scrawny like I am, a 30 centimeter thing will be more than enough for you to use. So if you're short and scrawny like I am, a 30 centimeter length of this fabric will be the perfect length for you. If you're a little bit bigger, if you're a little bit taller, it might depend, but this information is honestly just for reference. And in case you guys are wondering, I'm about 158 centimeters tall. Don't know how tall that is in feet, but that's just for reference. So if you're about the same height as I am, a 30 centimeter length of velvet would be enough. It is sold doubled over. So first things first, you want to find the prettier edge of your velvet. Now, as you can see, this side is cut fairly straight, Well, this side is quite jagged, so I'm gonna pick the uglier side to get my tassel trim. I'm going to line it up against the edge, and I'm going to measure exactly how much I need. From fraying, I'm gonna fold it over once and tape it in place for now. The tape is gonna come off later. To find out exactly how long my tassel trim has to be, I'm going to cut it, and I'm gonna tape the ends to prevent it from fraying because I want to be able to use the rest of this. And by the way, I would recommend leaving about a 1/4 inch of a seam allowance so that when we sew this thing together, the tassels won't get into the way. So basically have the tassel trim be about 1/2 an inch shorter than your entire fabric. Now I'm just gonna lay my velvet right side up again. I don't know why I had the wrong side up earlier, but yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. And because my tassel trim has a presentable edge, I'm just gonna sew it on directly onto the good side. I'm gonna overlap the fabric so that it shows through the gaps on the edge of the trim, and then I'm gonna sew along the edges. I'm gonna be using a whole bunch of pins to hold it in place because I don't want this moving around. I've threaded my needle with the golden thread, and I'm going to start sewing first on the edge. So, after I sewed on the tassel trim, I folded the entire thing in half and pinned the loose ends together. I've also threaded a needle, and I'm going to be sewing down this loose end so that I can make this entire thing into a loop. So here is the finished situation, and honestly, I think it's probably one of the most decent looking things I've ever made, but that's because I didn't use used clothing from the thrift store this time. I'm borrowing a shirt from my mom because I don't have one that matches yet, and this one isn't quite right either, so I'm gonna be looking for one, and hopefully I'll find one so that it matches the outfit that I want to do. But I think it looks good, and like I said, you only sew straight lines. If you have a strong enough sewing machine, you could honestly do it with that. Mine is incredibly old, so I can't really put anything other than like cotton fabric through it, so I didn't risk using, you know, polyester trim and velvet through that thing. But honestly, hand sewing, it didn't take me that long. It took me about 3 days probably, just because of how finicky the trim was. But once that was done, everything else was smooth sailing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and my hand is really getting tired, so I'm gonna end this right here. Yeah, I'll see you in my next one, guys. Bye!